Hey everybody, I want to talk about ways to get your shit together, quote unquote. I had an interesting weekend. I had opportunity to reflect on a lot of things, as one will tend to do on the weekend. I see a repeating theme a lot in the support groups that I frequent. The theme that I see so much, and not just in narcissism support groups, but the other groups I'm involved in, the question of how am I supposed to blank? How am I supposed to do that? And it can be on whatever topic it is, it's suicide. How am I supposed to live like this? Narcissistic abuse and other abuses. How am I supposed to leave? ADHD, how am I supposed to get people to understand? Here's the thing about the question, how am I supposed to? It's a bit of a loaded question. It's a loaded question that you ask. Whether or not you realize you're asking a loaded question is something else entirely. Because there's certainly a way to ask where it's not loaded. When you're asking a friend or, somebody across the table, or, how am I supposed to go grocery shopping tonight? My car's in the shop, right? Or, at work, you just got a new job, you're in training, you're like, well, how am I supposed to do my job? Right? But then there's, it's when you ask it about a life decision that it becomes a loaded question. So life decisions are decisions that typically you make it once and you stick to it. So the decision, like, I'm never going to murder somebody, right? You might get mad. You might get so mad at somebody, you're like, God, I would just want to but you don't do it. Why? Because that's a life decision. You would say, how am I supposed to not murder somebody when they're really damn irritating? Well, you just don't do it. Well, it's easy for you to say. What a loaded question is, it's a question for which there's no correct answer. It's a question that no matter what somebody tells you, no matter how somebody answers, you can disprove it and prove it to be wrong. They're highly subjective. You can see it in politics a lot. You can see it in the news a lot. All over journalism and media. I even have a video of Trump responding to a loaded question, and Lord knows there's plenty of things that I dislike about Trump, but he gave a perfectly executed rebuttal and shutdown to a loaded question to a journalist that just made my jaw drop. It's down there in my video list. So when you go to a support group and you ask, how am I supposed to leave? I have 3 kids. How am I supposed to leave? He pays my cell phone bill. How am I supposed to leave? He has all my money. The thing about that is, when you ask that question, there really is no answer, because nobody can give you the answer to those kinds of life questions. That's a life question. You need to do it. It's going to be really uncomfortable. And that's kind of sort of what's behind the question. You're miserable now. You're not happy now. You're unhappy now. If you could snap your fingers and be gone, that would be great. It'd be awesome. Maybe somebody out there has a way to do it. But that's not how it is. The funny thing about people and their willingness to help, people jump in to help when they actively see somebody needing help. But they're not going to help you get started. And that's what you need to understand. When you take the plunge and do whatever major life decision it is that you're trying to make, like leaving an abuser with 3 children and no money, you're going to be hard pressed to find somebody that's going to help you do that, because it's going to be very painful and you're going to need a lot of help. And the thing is, adults, by the time we're all adults and old enough to have 3 kids and be in a marriage for years and with a history of abuse and everything, all of our friends are also old enough to know that, damn, you know, like, and they may not be thinking this consciously, but it's like, damn, I mean, if I help Susie's probably going to end up in dire straits out on the streets and all that shit, and it's going to come back and blame me, and then I'm going to lose my friend, right? People tend to love their friends. That's why they're friends. A lot of times, friends don't want to put other friends in painful situations. But even strangers don't really want to do that too. On the other hand, if you hear from Susie and Susie says, hey, I finally left Bob Wife Beater McGee, and I don't know, like, we're out of the house, and I haven't found anywhere that I can go. Can you help me find a place, etc. At that point, that's when people jump in to help. They're not going to help you leave Bobby Wife Beater McGee. They'll help you find security after you do it. See, it's your responsibility to take that first plunge. It's not somebody else's responsibility to convince you to do it. Right? Because people are going to say, I'm not going to convince you you're ready to do something when clearly you're not ready to do it. That's just, you know, nobody's going to do that. They won't. And if somebody does do it, they may or may not have your best interest in mind or really be all that understanding or smart. You know, you're not gonna find that. You know, think of it like this. Let me block that light somehow. There we go. Think of it like this. If you're in a house and a fire starts, at what point do you run out of the house? Well, it depends on the fire, right? I mean, if you're cooking chicken in the pan and a little fire flames up like underneath the burner, you don't go running out of the house and grab the kids and, you know, hide your wife, hide your kids, and hide your husband. No, I mean, what do you do? I mean, you just move the pan off the burner. You know? What happens if you have a fire in the oven? Kind of sort of the same thing. A small fire that starts to get out of control, you have a fire extinguisher, but it's really there's a certain point where you look at a fire and you immediately decide life's more important, we get out. Okay? You don't grab the fire extinguisher and empty the fire extinguisher and you see the fire still burning. And then you don't say, man, how am I supposed to get out of this house? I used the fire extinguisher. How am I supposed to put out this fire? You don't do that. You don't sit there and watch the fire continue to grow and think, well, you know, maybe it'll just burn out on its own. Maybe it'll just stop. No. I mean, when there's a fire, what happens? You grab your kids, you grab your dog or cat, whatever it is you value, grab your iPhone or Galaxy or Samsung, whatever, and you get out. You just get out. Okay? You don't sit there and think, man, if I run out of this burning house, where am I going to sleep tonight? How am I going to, you know, that means I'm going to have to buy a new house. I'm going to have to do the homeowner's insurance. I'm going to have to do all that stuff. maybe it's not in my best interest to leave, because if I leave, then I know for sure the fire is going to burn out of control and I'm going to lose this house. And then that means that I have to do all this extra stuff, right? You don't sit there analyzing and contemplating the future decisions that you're going to have to make, right? You get your shit, you get out. And that's why it's important to know a little something about fire. Because if you don't, then you end up dying in the fire. That's one of the reasons why fire education's so important, you know? If nobody ever tells you about fire, just imagine that for a second. Imagine if you lived your whole life never knowing a thing about fire. Never any fire drills. Never any smoke alarms or smoke detectors. Nobody ever says, when there's a fire, just get out, your life is more important. Imagine if fires were invisible. Imagine if it was entirely possible that you could never perceive when your house is on fire. You're just sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden you start burning alive from something invisible. You know, that's horrific. That's why education is so important. You know, on something like fire, education is key. You know, that's how people survive fires, is by being well educated on fire safety, fire protocols, what to do in the event of a fire, right? But people research this stuff ahead of time, you know. Hopefully, I shouldn't be laughing at this. The day I see a post on the internet, like on Quora or Reddit or anywhere, where somebody takes a picture of their kitchen on fire and saying, I think there's something wrong with my kitchen. How am I supposed to fix this? What do I do? It shouldn't be funny. It shouldn't be funny. And it really isn't, because then when you take that situation out and replace it with different ingredients, like your life and the abuse that you're tolerating, that's what you're doing. You would never take a picture of your kitchen on fire and then go to a fire support group and say, hey guys, I think I'm in serious danger here. What do you think? Is this kitchen fire something that could turn into a house fire? I mean, the rest of the house isn't on fire yet. I mean, how am I supposed to leave with my 3 kids? How am I supposed to leave when my husband, or, you know, my boyfriend, when my wife has all the money? No, you don't do that. So this is how you get your shit together. Understand one thing. Psychological abuse is a fire. It spreads, it consumes everything in your life. It hasn't consumed everything yet if you're going to a support group and asking these kinds of questions. It will consume everything the longer you wait and the less education you have. So how to get your shit together. Learn to recognize the warning signs. Learn that these things do not resolve themselves, and get the hell out and take care of details later. Worry about the details later. Get out of the situation first. Once you're out, that's when people help. I'm out of time. I hope you're hearing what I'm saying. So please like, comment, or share, and I'll see you on another video.